Donald Trump faces new accusations, why he blames the media. Newt Gingrich talks to me about the two sides of Trump,
He's a historic figure.
the reason he stands behind the Republican nominee. Pope Francis seeks to protect young migrants and refugees, his appeal to people around the world. And speaking out against assisted suicide, Catholics weigh in on the healthcare debate on EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, October 13th, 2016.
These vicious claims about me of inappropriate conduct with women are totally and absolutely false.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Donald Trump fires back after several women came out accusing him of inappropriate touching. It comes as Hillary Clinton is facing growing criticism for anti-Catholic emails from her advisors. Jason Calvi is in the newsroom. Very bumpy ride to the White House. Jason?
Yeah, Lauren, Donald Trump says he's innocent and has substantial evidence to prove that. These latest allegations follow the release last week of a video from 2005 where Donald Trump talks about touching women.
The New York Times, Palm Beach Post, and People magazine all reporting Donald Trump kissed and touched women without consent.
These claims are all fabricated. They're pure fiction and they're outright lies. These events never, ever happened.
Speaking in battleground Florida, Trump says the Clintons are conspiring with the media.
Their agenda is to elect crooked Hillary Clinton at any cost, at any price, no matter how many lives they destroy. For them, it's a war.
As this magazine cover slams Donald Trump, so does Michelle Obama.
This is not something that we can ignore. It's not something we can just sweep under the rug as just another disturbing footnote in a sad election season.
Hillary Clinton faces her own scandal, as we've told you this week. Hacked emails published on WikiLeaks appear to show Clinton campaign leaders bashing Catholics as backwards, and even one about planting seeds of revolution in the church. But Clinton's communications director found in one of the leaked Catholic emails sidesteps the question.
I'm a Catholic. I don't recognize that email that we saw. And this whole effort is led by the Russians.
We've posted our previous stories on these leaked emails on our Facebook page. Many of you have chimed in. One follower writes that the Catholic Spring has happened, but not what the Democrats envisioned. They say the new blooming in the church is the solid vocations entering the church. Lauren?
Jason, it was reported last night as many as 10 women came out making these accusations. What is next for Trump? How is he going to handle these allegations against him?
Donald Trump today is threatening and says they're already actually preparing a lawsuit against these allegations. The New York Times, though, responds they're ready for that challenge.
Okay, Jason Calvi reporting live in our newsroom. Thank you, Jason. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, a Donald Trump supporter, sat down with me earlier today with advice, and he wanted to make a point about where he thinks this beleaguered Donald Trump campaign needs to go and why Catholics should vote for him.
There's this deep bias. The only group you're allowed to be bigoted against on the left are Christians.
My wide-ranging interview with Newt Gingrich is coming up in just a few moments. But first, other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. A Nigerian presidential spokesman says Boko Haram has released 21 of the missing Chibok schoolgirls who were abducted 2 years ago. They were reportedly swapped for imprisoned leaders of the terror group. Nearly 200 girls remain missing. Pope Francis calls on governments and all people of goodwill to help protect the vulnerable and the voiceless, children who are displaced as migrants or refugees. Mary Shovlin reports from Rome.
Pope Francis releases a powerful message today ahead of the World Day for Migrants and Refugees in January. The Holy Father says he feels compelled to draw attention to the harsh reality of child migrants. He's especially concerned about children who migrate alone and fall victim to trafficking, prostitution, and exploitation. Cardinal Antonio Veglio is the Vatican's point man for the care of migrants. He says it's a big business for criminals who target young people.
Where they are going? In the hand of the criminals.
It's a problem Europe is trying to address. Greece has opened a new center for unaccompanied refugee children near Athens, following extensive criticism of existing facilities. A Greek official says it will host up to 100 minors and is funded by international charities. Some 60,000 migrants are trapped in the country after border closures, something happening in many countries across Europe at the moment.
Pope Francis has repeatedly voiced concern for the plight of people seeking a better life. He even brought 12 migrants to Rome with him from Lesbos, Greece earlier this year, housing them here near the Vatican. His message today to governments: adopt every measure to guarantee their safety. In Rome, Mary Shovlin, EWTN News Nightly.
Pope Francis meets with the head of NATO. Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg praises the pontiff for his wisdom and push for a more peaceful world. He says the Holy Father, quote, should inspire us all. The Catholic world is still reeling from Hillary Clinton's campaign emails bashing Catholics. Former Speaker of the House and Catholic Newt Gingrich joined me earlier today to talk about those emails and why he said this morning that while he supports Donald Trump and admires him, quote, there's a big Trump and a little Trump, and the little Trump is, frankly, pathetic. Mr. Speaker, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be with you.
Donald Trump is under attack for inappropriately touching women, which he's denied. He's countering by talking about women who have accused Bill Clinton of sexual misconduct. He's openly fighting with Republican leaders. He's plummeting in the polls, and we are 25 days away from the election. Has he severely damaged his own campaign?
Well, I think he's weakened his campaign, although the latest poll shows him, and Rasmussen shows him ahead 44-42. I think the country is sort of caught in a trap. It deeply does not want to elect Hillary Clinton, who I think is widely regarded as dishonest and corrupt. On the other hand, they keep learning things about Trump that jar them and make them sort of take a step back. And I think this is going to have to shake its way out in the next week or two as people ultimately make judgments. But I think the more Trump focuses on the big issues, the better off he's going to be. For example, the kind of Supreme Court he would choose would be dramatically more favorable to religious liberty than the kind of Supreme Court that Hillary Clinton would choose. So I think there are grounds to think that if he could get to the big issues and get away from all this junk, he would do much better.
He would do better. You said the big Trump, and there's a little Trump who's pathetic. What did you mean by that?
Well, when he focuses on the big things, he's a historic figure. He raises issues, whether it is immigration or the national debt, or the fact that after 15 years of loss and effort, we're not winning in the Middle East. He raises really big issues and does the right kind of thing. And then every once in a while, he goes off on these personality things, and he sort of shrinks to this much smaller stage with much smaller topics. What really triggered it was a video of him complaining about somebody not calling to congratulate him after he won the debate. And I just thought, Ronald Reagan wouldn't have done that. I mean, right. Dwight Eisenhower wouldn't have done it. If Trump wins, he's going to be president. He's got to be up here, uplifting all of us, not down here being tiny.
Right. When we talked yesterday, we had seen a string of emails from the Clinton campaign disparaging Catholics. And on that Trump-organized conference call yesterday, you said that Hillary Clinton's Supreme Court will be the most anti-religious liberty and most anti-free speech ever in American history. Is this why you believe Catholics should vote for Donald Trump?
Well, I think there's a whole range of issues that range from, Secretary Clinton's willingness to eliminate the Hyde Amendment and have taxpayers pay for abortion, to her willingness to have abortion on the 9th month. The whole range of places where I think Catholics can be jarred by her positions. But in particular, what we're seeing on the radical left is a deep anti-Christian bias That's why, for example, you see a lot more effort to get Muslim refugees than you do to see Christian refugees. You haven't seen the American government aggressively opposing what really is the destruction of Christianity in large parts of the Middle East where it originally occurred 2,000 years ago. So I think that there's this deep bias. The only group you're allowed to be bigoted against on the left are Christians. And you see this in these WikiLeaks emails among the senior members, including her director of communications, Palmieri. And the question is, if those exact same words had been uttered about a Muslim or uttered about somebody who was gay or lesbian, they'd have been fired immediately. Right. But as long as they're only disparaging the Catholic Church, then that doesn't really matter. So I think that's the background that I was coming from.
You know, Rudy Giuliani said this morning that mainstream media is in a conspiracy with Democrats. Do you agree with that?
I would say it's more than that. The New York Times doesn't just like Hillary Clinton. The New York Times is Hillary Clinton. It's all the same system, the same establishment, the same biases. And of course, the New York Times' largest outside shareholder is the richest man in Mexico. So you can imagine the intensity of their commitment to trying to beat Trump. And I thought, if you go back to last Friday, they found an 11-year-old tape, which is totally reprehensible, and Calista and I have both said publicly that it's inexcusable, it's a terrible thing to have done. He has apologized for it, and I'm glad he did. But the very same day, we were finding WikiLeaks, for example, that Hillary Clinton, in a secret speech in Brazil to a bank that paid her $225,000, had said that she had a dream of an open border for all of the Western Hemisphere. That would mean 600 million people could cross the border. It would mean that the drug dealers in Mexico, the cocaine dealers in Colombia, the MS-13, the violent gang in El Salvador, could cross the American border. Somehow the New York Times couldn't find that story. You didn't see NBC and ABC and CBS find that story, but it is a remarkable statement. And I think if every American knew that Secretary Clinton's dream was of an open border with 600 million people potentially coming to the United States, I suspect she wouldn't get 25% of the vote.
It seems to me like these are the kind of big issues that you are thinking that Donald Trump should be paying attention to. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
And congratulations to Speaker Gingrich for his latest nonfiction book, Treason, which came out on Tuesday. Coming up, Catholics speak out after the American Medical Association considers changing its position on assisted suicide. And we look at the new campaign to counter Planned Parenthood's message. Pope Francis says Christians always feel the need for forgiveness and, quote, we have been chosen by God our Father. In his daily homily, Francis says this is the foundation of our relationship with God. And thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. The American Medical Association is considering changing its clearly stated opposition to physician-assisted suicide to a more neutral stance. As Wyatt Goolsbee reports, hundreds of Catholic physicians and nurses are voicing their concerns tonight. Wyatt?
Lauren, medical professionals are worried. The AMA is the country's largest association of doctors, and if they change their position to a neutral one, it could open the door to assisted suicide. This week, Catholic healthcare workers say they're fighting back.
If everyone who is Catholic stays out of medicine, there will be no one left to fight.
Fourth-year medical student Lindsay Marug is getting ready for a career she knows won't be easy. She's studying women's health and doesn't support abortion or contraception.
There's always going to be pressure from secular society to conform, but that we offer something different as Catholic medical students, as Catholic physicians, of that spirituality.
Marug and hundreds of other Catholics in the medical field realize they're facing an uphill battle. The latest concern, the American Medical Association's plan to study whether they should remove their long-standing opposition to assisted suicide. Dr. Lester Ruppersberger heads the Catholic Medical Association, which advocates for faithful church teaching.
They're absolutely horrified. The majority of them that are here have withdrawn their memberships to the American Medical Association. There's ongoing conversation behind the scenes for what we hope would be a majority of physicians that would be able to speak against that.
Ruppersberger says they're concerned since states like California, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington legalized assisted suicide. Bishop James Conley of Lincoln, Nebraska, says the practice goes against church teaching because it lacks respect for human life.
That's not what medicine is about. Medicine is about healing. Now, sometimes you can't heal every ailment, but still, God is the only one that can determine when life should come to an end.
Bishop Conley says being a doctor is a vocation, to heal and to care. He urges doctors to remember that as they deal with some of the most difficult issues in their field.
The Catholic Medical Association is urging doctors to bring their concerns over assisted suicide to next month's American Medical Association meeting. That's when AMA members will consider adopting a neutral stance on the issue. Lauren?
Thank you, Wyatt. A coalition of pro-life groups will launch a social media campaign this week ahead of the 100-year anniversary of Planned Parenthood on October 16th. The campaign, #100YearsOfAbuse, seeks to expose Planned Parenthood's systematic destruction of unborn children. The Susan B. Anthony List, a group dedicated to electing pro-life lawmakers, says, quote, in the last 3 years alone, Planned Parenthood has committed nearly 1 million abortions, while receiving a total of $1.5 billion from the American people. Against our will, we represent the growing number of Americans who oppose Planned Parenthood's extreme abortion agenda and seek to defund this abortion giant. Marilyn Musgrave, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Susan B. Anthony List, joins us now. Marilyn, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Can you imagine celebrating abortion?
I can't. What is your goal with the campaign?
Well,
simply to raise awareness?
Our goal is to expose Planned Parenthood for what they really are. Planned Parenthood, the largest abortion business in the nation, performs over 324,000 abortions and receives $1.5 billion a year annually from the American taxpayers.
This social media campaign, #100YearsOfAbuse, are you seeing traction on social media?
We're seeing traction, and we really need to expose Planned Parenthood for what it is. Planned Parenthood's founder, Margaret Sanger, was willing to eradicate the poor and the disadvantaged. She said they were like weeds, they were less than humans. So all you have to do is look at Planned Parenthood's founder, and they named their highest award after Margaret Sanger. Hillary Clinton is a past recipient of that award.
Why isn't there more outrage about her and her links to Planned Parenthood?
I can't answer that question because all you have to do is look at her own words. But perhaps in this campaign we can help expose Planned Parenthood for what they really do. The Center for Medical Progress videos showed harvesting of little baby parts, showed the brutality of Planned Parenthood for what it really is.
Those undercover videos by David Daleiden have put Planned Parenthood under the microscope, and there are also several congressional investigations going on. But do you think it has hurt Planned Parenthood's business?
Well, their business model is still the same. They make money because they perform abortions. Again, the largest abortion business in the country. But this call to action will help the people in this country be educated about what Planned Parenthood really does and how they are for the destruction of human life and abuse of women and taxpayer dollars.
Thank you so much, Marilyn Musgrave, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you for joining us.
It's good to be here.
And our viewers can find free content to share using the #YearsOfAbuse at this website, 100YearsOfAbuse.tumblr.com. Well, the times, they are a-changin', at least for the Nobel Prize in Literature. For the first time, the prestigious award goes to a musician. Singer-songwriter Bob Dylan wins for creating new poetic expressions. Dylan is famous for hits like Blowin' in the Wind and The Times They Are A-Changin'. Up next, a growing appeal to protect Christians in the Middle East. And airborne archaeology, how this bird's eye view could help preserve human history. Pope Francis welcomes 1,000 Lutherans to the Vatican. They're on a pilgrimage leading up to the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. The pontiff is traveling to Sweden at the end of the month to pray with Protestants. Pope Francis says by virtue of our baptism, we all form the one body of Christ. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. A Catholic writer is calling on world leaders to stop genocide of Christians in the Middle East. Her appeal comes after her pilgrimage to the Holy Land. She writes in U.S. News and World Report, death rains down on Syria indiscriminately. 500,000 souls lost in 5 years by some estimates. This is horror enough, but on top of that, tragedy is the conscious and systematic attempt by the Islamic State group to cleanse the Middle East of its ancient Christian communities and their suffering people. Dr. Gracie Christie, Senior Policy Advisor for the Catholic Association, joins me via Skype from Miami. Gracie, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You visited Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, and say you found a link between that memorial and what is happening in the world today. What is that?
When we were in Israel, we were also able to visit the Golan Heights and see with our own eyes the bombing that's going on in Syria. We saw it and heard it. And the visit to the museum, which tells about the Jewish Holocaust, reminded us very forcefully that what's going on in the Middle East is not only a terrible loss of life and suffering for the people who live there, but a genocide of the Christian people, that entire communities and a way of life is being wiped off the face of the map, much like it was in Eastern Europe with the Jews.
In the early 20th century, Christians made up 20% of the population. Now we're down to lower than 5%. What do you think, having been there, that world leaders can do to help Christians?
I think the first thing we all need to do, especially world leaders, is to acknowledge the fact that the Christian communities are organic to the area. They've been there for 2,000 years. Christianity began there, and they've had an unbroken presence there. They're not interlopers or outsiders. So their presence there is important. It brings peace and stability to a region that needs it. So they need to be supported in their existence where they are.
You know, as a Catholic, I've always wanted to do what you just did, go to the Holy Land, and I'm sure our viewers feel the same way. What did your recent trip there mean for you?
Well, it was a tremendous, it was such a fortunate thing that we were able to go. It was a beautiful experience. And it meant to me that I realized that when Jesus, when God chose to make himself one of us, and he came to Jerusalem, he saw very much what we see there now, people living in enmity, and fighting and all that, and the violence. And he was proposing, and he proposes, a new way of resolving conflict, a way of peace and of mercy. So it would be wonderful if that could finally, after 2,000 years, take hold in his home.
Dr. Gracie Christie, Senior Policy Advisor for the Catholic Association, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Ancient ruins in Jordan are under scrutiny, and archaeologists take to the skies to help protect them. From the air, Jordan is full of surprises. This aerial perspective helps archaeologists discover and protect sites across the kingdom.
Go left a bit.
The project is part of the larger network of the endangered archaeology in the Middle East and North Africa. Archaeologist Robert Bewley says he's finding angles that provide a new layer of information about the sites.
The satellite will give you some information, a drone will give you other information, but ours is our ability to be able to orbit, to see sites in different light that you would never otherwise see. So it's a unique perspective on the landscape.
The study now spans 18 years and has documented catastrophic urban sprawl, destroying and threatening sites across the kingdom. Destruction of antiquities is clear from the air, but so are 2,000 enormous rock structures in Jordan's bleak eastern desert.
For me, the discovery of the prehistoric sites in the eastern desert, in the basalt desert, has been one of the most eye-opening things. There are huge sites there. Some of them are settlements, some of them are hill forts, some of them are these hunting sites that we call kite sites because they look like kites when you look at them from above.
Bewley works with the Jordanian Air Force, harnessing himself to the helicopter so he can lean out and capture the remarkable images.
I see it.
By recording how these sites look now, he's helping researchers look into their past and protect them into the future.
And as archaeologists, we know we can't preserve everything, but we want to be able to record what we know so that if people are going to do something, whether it's build a house or build a road or build a railway, whatever it might be, that we can say, well, there's some archaeology there that may be of interest. So we can do preliminary excavations, preliminary surveys, and we can say, yes, that can be destroyed, sadly, or that's so important that we wouldn't be able to do anything with it.
More than 100 archaeological projects have used these photographs for research. That does it for us for this evening. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Lauren Ashburn. Good night and God bless.